Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of Valpo Football Weekly, presented by our friends at Lakeshore Bone and Joint Institute. Brandon Vickery with you. Glad to be joined by the head coach of the Valpo football program, Andy Waddle. We'll look ahead to this week's game against Dayton in a few minutes, but let's start by talking about Saturday's PFL opener at Drake. And Coach, one thing that obviously stood out was Drake had 7 sacks. They were able to get pressure on your quarterbacks, which is a big factor in the game on Saturday. What adjustments do you want to see going forward in that area?
Yeah, I mean, I think credit to Drake. They came out with a solid pass rush. We had been fairly good protecting the quarterback, this season. I think I don't know what the numbers were, but I don't think that we'd given up more than a sack in either of the first any of the first three four games, even including against North Dakota, which I think has a really exceptional front seven, really exceptional front seven. So, I think that our guys are capable of standing in there and being able to protect the quarterback. I think, some of it, we've got to be able to throw the ball all the time, and that can be both from the quarterback to the play call and the structure that we're putting our guys in. We didn't necessarily cut anybody loose, so it wasn't like that it was a major schematic error, but just some guys not maybe getting their full body in front of the other guy and pitching down or putting their face mask as a running back and into the center of the linemen, seeing what they hit, right, or the O line just kind of getting in front. But Drake did a good job of creating the pressure. We can be certainly more stout, with our just our fundamentals offensively, and we'll try to get a little bit less predictable when we're going to throw the ball and be a little bit more with some quick game options.
Let's talk about special teams as you look back at the film. What'd you see there? What can you do to clean things up in the punting game?
Yeah, I mean, they were bringing a ton of pressure, and really, honestly, I mean, they were trying to bring more guys. They weren't accounting for our tight end in the game. So I mean, we have to be able to, if people aren't going to account for them, we have to be able to force them to account for it. So you know, possibly you know prepare some ways to do that. But um, our operation continues to be a little bit slower than what it should be. And you're talking about 2/10 of a second, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're have guys running at you full speed, 2/10 of a second can be the difference between a clean operation and pressure being generated, and that's the snap to putting the ball on the punter's foot. Um, but yeah, there's some things that we're going to do to kind of create some different opportunities to hopefully be able to clean that side of the game up.
I thought your defense was put in some tough spots with short fields. Obviously, they scored on a pick six. Despite the point total given up, I mean, how would you assess the way the defense played on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I think like they drove the ball really only two times throughout the game where they drove the ball over 40 yards, right? And so I think the defense did some good things, but you have a pick six, you have three total interceptions, you have some short fields because we had a couple bad punts. I mean, one time there's no pressure at all, and we just do not punt the ball, very far. And we go for it on fourth down once, I don't know, it's 4th and 1 from, the around the 40-yard line. Obviously we'd struggled punting the ball. You'd like to be able to think that we could get the 1 yard. They kind of all move defensively, and our center, I think, thinks that they're crossing the line or here's a clap, whatever, snaps the ball, we're not ready, we take a loss, and puts the defense in bad position. So, you know, we gave up some big plays defensively. There are certainly some things that we can clean up, but I think as a whole, the defense did some good things, and I think we can build on some of the things that they're doing out there.
Maybe the biggest bright spot was Nick Lendino and the way he played, particularly in the first half. It seemed like every tackle he was involved, had the interception. What stood out to you about Nick this season? What's he been like for you to coach?
Nick's awesome. He's a First off, I mean, I think everybody, you start with the character that they are, and he's got great character and really loves the game and the team. And he's somebody that I think that we can certainly, build around, somebody that we want to build around. But he shows up to work every day. He's a tough kid. Mentally, he works at it, and then he's talented, and he can run and cover and hit, and he's a big part of what we want to do defensively.
Let's look ahead to this week. You play a Dayton team that's 2-0 in league play. They had to fend off a rally from Morehead State this past week. What stands out to you as you look ahead to the Flyers?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're really good. I think that you look at them and they do a great job on their special teams. They've got a great returner. They bring a lot of pressure on their punt. I think that they punt the ball well. So they're good with their returns. They're good with their cover teams. Um, Offensively, their running backs are, I think, both pretty good. They got a really dynamic receiver and a talented uh a talented tight end. And you look and you see their center is a really good player. Their tackles, I think, are solid. And then their defensive front, right? Those guys are really solid as well, and run around. And they've been very good for several years now defensively, and that seems to hold true again this year. So they're going to be a challenge, but at the same point in time, I think that there's some things that we can do in all those areas to, attack any weaknesses that they may show, and defend against the strengths that they have. And I'm sure that our guys are going to be, ready to get out there and compete this weekend.
There he is, head coach of the Valpo football program, Andy Waddle, finally back home. It's a 1 o'clock game on Saturday, a big day with the Grit and Grill event and pregame tailgating, courtesy of Lombardi Sausage Company. And again, the kickoff at 1 o'clock as Valpo finally returns home to take on Dayton. Tickets at tickets.valpoathletics.com. Talk to you again next week on Valpo Football Weekly, presented by Lakeshore Bone and Joint Institute.
Go Valpo.